All right, folks, Bible Alive, the infancy narratives, the most controversial Bible study that I have given. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And we're going to see why, I think, but that's all right, because controversy's okay. We just have to look at things. Sometimes we have to look at ourselves and recognize that often we have a spurious familiarity with stories we think we understand, and maybe we've been understanding them in a kind of erroneous way for a while by making assumptions. Let's dive into it. 21st century Americans have a hard time making distinctions between truth and facts. This is true whether or not politically they're conservative or liberal. This is true whether they're Catholic or other Christian or Jewish or whatever, or atheist. All facts are true, but not all truths are facts. Truth is a circle which includes facts, but it's not identical with facts. In fact, facts are a small circle inside the much larger encompassing circle, truth. Truth is not reducible to historical truth, provable, measurable truth. Not all cultures tell history with obsession for just the facts, like we Americans do, whatever our political persuasions be. The Bible is all true, and some of it actually happened. If you have resistance to that, if you have emotional problems with that, it's okay. That's a good sign that you have been well indoctrinated and brainwashed into this American culture. You should have no problems with that. But don't try to force yourself not having a problem. Soak in the feelings and the anxiety being produced by what I'm saying, because that will enable the Holy Spirit to open some new windows. Are the stories of Jesus' birth found in Matthew and Luke, the documents we call Matthew and the document we call Luke, are they historical?
I would say
Let's say we say yes, they are. Let's say we say yes. Then we have to ask, in what way and to what extent are they historical? A lot of Catholic Christians wouldn't even dream to ask these questions, because if they're American Catholic Christians, they have been told, they have assumed when they hear truth, they're hearing facts, because facts are truth and truth are facts. So when they hear the truth of Matthew chapter 1 and 2, or the truth of Luke chapter 1 and 2, they naively think that means American fact-based truth, that the whole thing is factual. So these questions aren't even on the radar screen, and they need to be. If Matthew chapter 1 and 2 and Luke chapter 1 and 2 are historical, in what way are they historical, and to what extent? Certainly these two stories, from whence the core of our Christmas traditions come, from where our Advent expectations come, are historical in some way. But even in this way, are not historical in how Americans think history. The way a scholar like the late great Father Raymond Brown would phrase the issue is that there are reasons for thinking that the birth stories, which are found in the first two chapters of Matthew and the first two chapters of Luke, are not historical in many details. Two facts have to be kept in mind in relationship to that judgment. First, Big C Catholics, often called Roman Catholics, sometimes assume that if one were to query or question the historicity of the birth narratives of Matthew chapter 1 and 2 and Luke chapter 1 and 2, that means one is going against official church teaching. But that is wrong. That is not true. There is no official church statement in force demanding Catholics to believe that the birth narratives of Matthew chapter 1 and 2 and Luke chapter 1 and 2 are literally historical. Indeed, the statement of the Roman Pontifical Biblical Commission on the Historical Truth of the Gospels, 1964, very clearly concerned what the disciples heard and saw of Jesus during his public ministry, and that document did not treat the stories of his birth. Afterwards, there was an attempt to have the Commission issue a statement about the historicity of the birth narratives, but it was abandoned in the late 1960s, presumably because such a statement would have been too complicated and perhaps have had to be too nuanced. But since 1964, we've acknowledged that, that first of all, not every detail in the gospel narratives is historical truth. The Gospels are all true. Some of it actually happened. The infancy narratives are just too complicated, as we're going to see why. And a lot of the material in the infancy narratives cannot be historical. And it's a big problem pastorally because most Catholic Christians get exposed while they are children, get very emotionally tied up with Christmas and Christmassy feelings and sentiment at a very core emotional level. And way before they get into Easter, before they begin to understand and comprehend Easter, there is a very strong foundation and orientation towards Christmas. Think about the family. Think about the formative years of a child and all that emotionally goes into that. So now when the Catholic is 50, 60, 70 years old, you start talking this kind of thing, there's controversy, there's pain, what are you doing? Because on an emotional, non-rational level, I'm tampering with things. I'm putting my fork into things that are very sensitive and very raw. What are you saying, Bill? Are you saying that the Christmas stories are wrong? See? Now, I'm not saying that, but understand it's that's why I said it's very controversial. Very controversial what we're going to be covering today. But we need to go into the water. Okay. The second reason involves why we have a tradition about what Jesus did and said to begin with. It's because people who had been with him were in a position to report those sayings and deeds, namely the disciples, and in particular the 12. But none of those disciples and none of the 12 was present at the birth of Jesus, correct? Okay, that means, folks, that we cannot claim that we have apostolic witness to the birth events. We can say they're inspired, but we have to nuance what we mean by inspired, don't we? It doesn't mean dictated.